the team, when they need to battle, they can battle, right? Which is something that we maybe questioned a little bit at the end of Greg Berhalter's reign, right? And at least we started having a discussion about that, because there was all this conversation about how camp was like Club Med, and it was just too easy in a lot of ways. We talk about it all the time, and I know almost to a point where it sounds cliche-ish, Jimmy, where we say, "Oh, it's hard to win in CONCACAF on the road," right? And people are like, it's CONCACAF, the competition," but it really is. And until excuse me, until we see differently, until we see sort of nations start blowing teams away, we haven't seen it for as long as I can remember. 1986, when I started watching CONCACAF qualifying. Hoping that the U.S. would get into a World Cup in '86. I just don't see a lot of teams over the years, and it gets tighter and tighter every year. And yeah, there's conditions, but I think more than the conditions of the game, and in a lot of cases, the referees and the way that they manage games, I just think players around the world are better, and the gap gets smaller. And this whole Nations League thing, if you think about it, CONCACAF set this up so CONCACAF teams would improve. They weren't talking about the U.S. improving. They weren't talking about Mexico or Costa Rica. They were talking about teams like Jamaica, who always had talented players. Teams like Panama, who have talented players that get to play better competition. And that's why I think, Jimmy, you see these results.
Yeah, I think to tack onto that, MLS has also provided an opportunity to, maybe the best players, like Suriname has Geraldo Becker. He's playing, over in Europe. But then I feel like you have players like him, Coco Carrasquilla, who's at Panama, who's reigning CONCACAF Player of the Year. MLS has provided a platform for maybe your middle class of players. Okay, maybe your top 2 or 3 go off and play somewhere bigger. Well, MLS has provided a nice, stable place to live, to earn money, to develop, and so MLS in some ways is kind of working against the U.S. men's national team, even though we're providing that for our players as well, and our player pool too. It also is helping. A rising tide lifts all boats, as they say. Now, with regard to winning an away game in CONCACAF, this is Mauricio Pochettino became just the 3rd full-time U.S. manager to win his first competitive away match, joined Bob Bradley and Steve Sampson, who achieved that back in 2008 and 1996, respectively. However, there was a stat that's floating around the internet, and this is what they do. Stats just float around, but that Pochettino matches Greg Berhalter's total of away wins against CONCACAF opposition. That is not actually true. Greg Berhalter had 2 CONCACAF teams that he beat on the road. One was Honduras. That was in World Cup qualifying. Remember that one, 2021. We were down 1-0 in that game. Yeah. Tyler Adams was playing right back. If you remember, Tyler Adams started right back. We came back and scored 4 goals in the second half to win that one 4-1. That was a crazy game, and kind of propelled Greg into getting that momentum again. I remember that ahead of that game. If he loses in Honduras, that could be curtains for Greg Berhalter. It didn't work out that way. And then we beat Cuba away from home 4-0 in the group stages of the Nations League. However, the game was played in a neutral venue. It was played in the Cayman Islands. So I guess it doesn't feel like it was in Cuba, which obviously makes things more difficult when you're playing in front of your home fans. But still, an away game. It wasn't on American soil. So there was actually 2 there for Greg Berhalter. Just wanted to debunk the stat that was floating around. But we'll get some updates.
So at best, it's 2, you're saying, right? So,
what's that?
So at best, it's 2.
At best, it's 2. Not great.
Right, still not great, right? Yeah.
Still not great. And in official competition, Mauricio Pochettino 1 for 1. Okay, I know the Mexico friendly is still in there. It's still fresh. We don't like losing to Mexico. All right, some updates from camp. Johnny Cardoso undergoing some tests to see. He's going to be ruled out for leg 2 in this one. Aiden Morris unavailable after suffering an ankle injury in training. We also got some words from Mauricio Pochettino. So let's roll that clip right now and hear what he had to say.
I think for us is really good to have this type of opponent like Jamaica to make us to realize that we need to fight to match the aggressivity of the opponent. It's true that it's CONCACAF and it's no easy competition, but we learn. We need to learn, and today is another step that was in Mexico, learning is easier when you win the games to learn. You can learn fast, but I think, yes, tough game. We need to be pleased and now to try to design all the strategy to recovery and be ready for Monday.
All right. So, not saying anything we wouldn't expect, I guess, given the position, but more learning. Ultimately, we have a new coach here, Tony, and he's obviously trying to implement his ideas, but also having to deal with playing away from home in a tough environment against a tough team. So before we get into Jamaica and their perspective, because I do think that they probably have to feel somewhat confident that they're hanging in there. It's only 1-0. They missed a penalty, had one close, being cleared off the line, had some opportunities, made us sweat a little bit. They're not the favorites going into this, but they've been very good away from home. We'll get into them in a second. But with regard to learning, what do you think that Mauricio Pochettino learned in this first leg alone that you think will maybe see some changes to how we play or maybe even personnel going into leg 2?
That's a good question. I think he learned that the team, when they need to battle, they can battle, right? Which is something that we maybe questioned a little bit at the end of Greg Berhalter's reign, right? And at least we started having a discussion about that, because there was all this conversation about how camp was like Club Med, and it was just too easy in a lot of ways, right? So maybe we learned that. I learned from Pochettino that even if we go down to Jamaica and we're playing on a poor field, he's okay still giving the guys the confidence to try and build out of the back. Now, you got to be good doing it. We turned the ball over a couple times, but it ultimately didn't get punished for it. So we learned that, and that the guys would have the confidence to do that. And there was also a secondary sort of path, right? We saw a couple times Ream over the top to Anthony Robinson, which has become something that is becoming a theme, right? We saw it against Panama. I think it was the first goal, right? Against Panama, the ball over the top and it bounces around, but it's Ream releasing a wing back. So we've learned that, and I think I gotta still think that Pochettino is still, like, this was a different environment in Mexico. It was a different environment than being at home against Panama. He's going to have a different environment going to St. Louis. I still think he's learning who his players are. You have to, right? This is going to be game 4. There's no way, there's no coach in the world that knows all of his players and all the personalities 4 matches in, especially in this case, Jimmy, as a national team coach, when you're not around the players all the time. It's a tough task,
right.
But he has enough people around him, enough really good people around him to get eyeballs on everybody. So maybe he doesn't see everything, but the guys around him are building that, I call it a database for him of who all of these guys are. So he's still in that phase, but I think he would and should be happy with the way the result happened for the U.S. against Jamaica.
Yeah, a little game management in there too, right? Where, okay, this is the situation. We go up early. How do we manage the situations and what's happening? And where are we trying to win the ball back? How deep are we going to drop? Like, these are all these little pieces of information that you're talking about. And you've coached, I've coached. A lot of the players that I'm drawn to, no matter what level, the players that can grasp your concepts quickly, I have a soft spot for that. You're just like, I can tell there's a shorthand, and that kid's or player can be like, yeah, I got it, and then go out and execute it. Like, I love those types of players. Now, what we have learned, I think, in our coaching journey is that you sit in front of 20 players, you're saying the same thing, and they're all going to absorb that information in different ways. So you have to be really thoughtful about what's happening and who might be not grasping it quickly, but you know that they're really valuable, so you got to get them caught up to speed. Or somebody who grasps it right away. Cool. How do you make sure they're not going so fast that everybody else isn't around and at their speed or at their level, whatever it is, right? And you're trying to find that balance at all times. So I wonder, when he looks at his player pool, even though he's got 4 games now under his belt, which players he's really starting to be a fan of because they're so quick in grasping the way that he wants to play. And not only that, can also go out there and execute at a high level. And that's something I think to keep note of when he chooses his starting 11 and as he has more players available. The Yunus Musa one is a perfect example for me. I don't think he sees Yunus Musa as a central player in his team. I think he sees him out wide. Okay, great. But we got Tim Weah coming back into the team, and I want to see how that then is reflected. Does he value Musa as someone who's just so talented, we got to get him on the field no matter what? Or does he only see him as someone that is as effective as possible up wide or out wide? And we're still going to stay true to the guys that actually play centrally game in and game out for their clubs. These are the types of things that I'm very curious about this lineup in a way that we maybe haven't seen. And as what our healthy nines come back in, if Pepe scores again and has another good performance, okay, then does Balogun just the guy no matter what? I don't know. These are they're good problems to have ultimately, but
yeah.
But I'm very curious about the Weah Musa decision in particular with the starting 11.
Yeah, Weah Musa, that's going to be a conversation. Does he maybe move? You know, part of it is, and we talked about this the other day, does now with Johnny going out, Tillman came in for him, which is not necessarily his role, a little bit deeper, but maybe does he try Musa here? Okay, I don't believe he's that guy, but in this instance, I'm almost forced to play him there because Aiden Morris is out now. Do I want to give Busio the start? Do I want to give Tanner Tessman the start? Or I do think, and I'm saying I like I'm him, right? If I'm Pochettino, I do think that Musa's one of our
Pochettino right now.
Yeah, one of our top 11, like you say. So now I got to find him on the field somehow. So I got Weah. I got to play him. He's going to be fresh. There's no doubt about it. So if I got to get Musa on the field, there's only one real logical position to put him, right? And it's a little bit deeper. Unless you play like a 4-1-4-1, like when you've got that line of four underneath Ricardo, we're thinking it's Ricardo Pepi, and you can move Musa a little bit higher up the field. So he's got some decisions to make, and we will get an idea. But as far as guys that he's going to lean on and his guys, look, if Matt Turner, right, that's his guy right now because he really hasn't done him wrong. Right, he's been pretty good. Anthony Robinson, that's his guy. Pulisic, that's his guy.
Tim Ream's been his guy, giving him the captain's armband. But Tim hasn't been lights out. He's he hasn't. Solid right. In moments, but not lights out.
I think that one of the real discussions is the number 9 position, right? Because ultimately you want that guy to score goals, right? You want that guy to be involved. You want that guy to be a link-up man. You want him to be a lot of things. Ricardo Pepi's gone in and done a job for him. So, I mean, I'm looking. Of course, the injuries make it difficult, right? So Vasquez has been in Vasquez's roles. He's been good. He came in the game against Mexico, was the only guy with a shot. Even though he misses an opportunity, that ball's I went back. That ball to the top of the box is bouncing to him, right? So the one he doesn't really test the goalkeeper down to is right. He had the one Pulisic played that with some venom on that one for that short pass. So but he's getting in good spots. So my point is, in the role that he's been given as a 15, 20-minute sub, he's been okay in that role. That might end up being his role in the end.